All right, so you were already trying to minimize the time and exposure they had to your operation because you were concerned they might find something.
Well, there's plenty to see. You know, every piece of paper had the 5/8 account on it. You know,
Okay.
it's not, you know, it's always described as a hidden account. It was anything but hidden. You couldn't hide it because the volume of trading that was going through the 5/8 account by the end of the period was probably 90% of the daily volume that Barings were transacting.
Okay.
You know, it grew to that sort of...
And what is the 5/8 account for people that don't know?
The 5/8 account was the illegal account that it started off as an error account, and then it became my illegal account to, or my account to warehouse the illegal positions that I was running.
Okay.
So very early on in the mid of '92, what happened, just to give you the correct chronological order, is the Japanese markets were collapsing aggressively. So there was lots of spoofing, lots of layering, all of which is illegal these days.
What is a spoof or a layer? So
people putting orders into the market and then cancelling them, or adding to. So layering is where you just layer on top of the orders. So it just gives the perception that it's very, it's very heavy on the sell side or very heavy on the buy side, whichever way it is. The markets in Japan were automated, so you could see this on the screens. And if the Nikkei 225 moved 700 points, the circuit breakers would kick in and there would be no trading for that day. So if people continued to layer on top, you know, every half an hour, I can't remember exactly the amount of time, but every half an hour, the market would tick down 100 points. And so if you took your orders out, all of a sudden it would open. And so that's the idea of spoofing or layering, and it still happens to this day, but not to, I think there's a lot more scrutiny over it than there was back in the day.
So a lot of people gaming that.
Yeah, but the way that it was gained in Singapore at the time, or in Japan at the time, was that you could manufacture it so that the market didn't open in Japan. So it would go sell, the sell orders would mean that the market would go down 700 points and then it wouldn't open for the day. And then all of the business shifted to Singapore. So Singapore went from trading 2,000 contracts a day as a fairly new product to trading 20 to 30,000 contracts a day, because all of the volume shifted from Japan over to Singapore. So you know, the systems weren't able to cope with it. So, you know, in an open outcry market, you're trying to match the two orders in a 30-minute period. It was taking us 14, 15 hours to match a trade. The systems would break down, that you wouldn't be able to access them for 5 or 6 hours. So sometimes it would be 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning before you could match a trade, which obviously gives you a lot of risk. We're all looking for new staff, so you'd try and recruit from the other brokers. The other brokers will pay them a little bit more because they know who's good. So eventually, and it's quite a small community in Singapore.
How big?
The trading floor has, you know, maybe 400 people on it, I'd say. Right. And some of those are the clerks who are doing the running around. So you'd know yourself from the 90s, you know, if you were running a book, or you're running a desk, or you're running an operation within the bank, you know, maybe an auditor comes in to audit you, and they're particularly good, they appear quite clever, intellectual, you recruit them. And the same thing happened in Singapore. So we were looking at other brokers to try and take their staff. Couldn't really do too much of that. So then you're looking at some of the local order fillers, and then you look at the exchange officials. So a lot of the exchange officials are taken off of the trading floor, those control functions, and are working for brokers. So then all of a sudden, the control that the exchange has over the pit is non-existent. There's trading outside of the pit, there's fights, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
Physical fights.
Yeah, it was like the Wild West, right? Because the guys that they then brought in to control the trading floor had no experience, because it's almost cannibalistic. You're eating or you're gorging on the people that are already working there, and all of a sudden there's nothing left. So you could pretty much do what you wanted, and I did for a period of time. You know, that wasn't the intent. I mean, we spoke a bit about at the beginning, people seeing opportunity. That wasn't the way that it worked for me. You know, we made an error, and I very stupidly decided to put that into the 5/8 account.